Now, of course, a very important part of concrete is the rebar. Now, typically what the guys do when they go through this, as they come to it, they lift it up to make sure that it's right in the middle of the concrete rather than underneath. But we've made it a little bit easier for them by setting it up on some pavers so that it's already up there, and hopefully it'll go a little bit faster.
Well, things are coming along pretty well. They're all done snapping their chalk lines, so we know exactly where we want the slope of everything to be going. So it goes right down to the scuppers and pretty much follows the whole drainage pattern. In laying out a patio like this, it is really crucial now to get our pitch just perfect. And I know the guys spent a lot of time this morning just determining exactly how it was going to go and what the fall was going to be from one pillar to the next. Now, one reason why the pitch is so important on something like this is because we don't want to have water getting caught in one of the corners of one of the posts here. So we want everything to kind of flow away from our outside parapet and then flow toward the scuppers so we can get it off the patio. And so they start on one side, they lay out enough concrete, and they kind of screed that back, matching it to the chalk line so we get the right amount of drainage. They kind of trowel a little bit of that off, then they bull float it. Once that's fairly smooth, then they start to distribute the color. And they just let that color kind of sit on the top. It absorbs some of the moisture from the concrete and helps bond with that top surface. Then they'll trowel out the surface. It helps bring up a little bit of the cream fines, gives a little bit more of a finished surface.
Well, because access is limited to really just these steps right here, instead of pouring the entire patio all at once, they're pouring it in sections. So they're starting at the far end of the patio, they'll pour a section, they'll screed it, float it, and then broadcast the color, and then keep going and do that with the next section, then the next section, all the way back to the steps. It seems to be working great to work that way, because that way they can get the color on, let it soak in a little bit, and then when they come back, they can start working in the color and eventually do the stamping. All right, our concrete is all laid out now, and they are finishing up with the colorant, troweling it out, just about ready to start with the stamping. Now it's going to be the same process as it was yesterday with the steps. They're going to be putting a liquid release agent on there to make sure that the stamps come up nice and clean. We're using a slate texture with an ashlar pattern. They're going to start on the far end of the patio and work their way back to the steps here. Now timing is key with the stamping, because if you start too early, you're going to have kind of a muddy pattern. If you start too late, it'll be difficult to get much of a pattern at all. And this is where experience really helps. These guys have been doing it a long time, and they know exactly when to jump on it.
There's really a lot of detail in getting all of this stamping just perfect. Get it so it looks like a natural product. And so it's a combination of using the stamps and then up against areas where the stamps are too large to fit, or you run out of room where you can bend them down, applying just the mat itself, and then using hand tools to sort of trowel in that look like you have individual stones. The patio really looks nice. I'll tell you, it was a big decision to bust all of this up, and when we talked to Steve Bulak, when he came out to do the bid, we said, well, how about if we just leave the steps, because we know that's a lot of work. He said, you know, it's never going to match. He said you have to take out the whole thing just to get the whole match going again, and I'm glad we did, because it's beautiful. It looks just about exactly like it looked the first time, but that's what we were going for.